The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good afternoon, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got incredible show for you today. This first show has actually been with us for 4 years. That's a long time. And I got to tell you, I am so blessed to have them. They are our estate planning experts, and the Julia Dean Law Firm does such a great job explaining about estate planning and elder law. Julia cannot be with us today, but we have a great stand in Carla Sprague. She's a senior attorney with the Dean Law Firm. Good afternoon, Carla.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
What a beautiful name, Carla.
Thank you. My parents, my mom, it was my grandmother's favorite flower is the calla lily, so I'm Calla. So, yep.
You know, when you came on, I said, is it Kayla or Calla? But God, I'm so glad it's Calla because that is a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Tell us, and we're so glad to have you back with us again. Tell us about the Dean Law Firm.
Sure. So we've, Julia, my supervising attorney, like Steve mentioned, she's actually out on a family emergency, so I'm filling in for her today. But she's actually been practicing in the world of estate planning for 36 years. The firm has been here for about 22 of those, I think. We have two other attorneys. Myself, I've been practicing in the world of estate planning and probate and elder law, the types of things we do here. I've been doing that strictly for 8 years. We have another attorney, Jonathan Sterneman, who has been practicing the same areas for about 12 years. Jonathan, he has a little bit more expertise in the worlds of oil and gas, which is really important here in Texas, as one can imagine.
Yes.
I have a little bit more expertise in the tax world than Jonathan. So we kind of the three of us kind of complement each other really well because, of course, Julia being practicing for 36 years, it's all a little bit of her expertise. So our ability to complement each other, I think, is really good. Our strengths we're just a really, really solid team over here that we really enjoy working with one another. And I think that shows in our work.
Okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox. I got to say this. So I think that an attorney that goes into estate planning is really a special attorney. First of all, you have to have a heart for others. I'm not saying other areas of law doesn't, but something about estate planning with, you're dealing with, when a person passes on, that you want to make sure that the family is protected before they pass on. And I know Julia, and I know that she hires her staff because having just an amazing heart.
Yeah. When I first decided in the 5th grade that I wanted to be a lawyer, estate planning, as you can imagine, wasn't on my radar. Taxes were. It didn't take me very long because I like numbers. I'm a number person. Numbers always add up. But when I got to law school, I quickly realized in tax law, you don't get to know people, and you kind of, for me, I lost why I was doing what I do. Well, I really, truly want to help people. And Julia and Jonathan, I do believe truly that they feel the same way. But I think when people pass away, we forget, attorneys, we go into do mode and we forget there's this whole other aspect of the probate world that is emotional. Because at the end of the day, somebody's lost their mother or lost their child or their sibling or whoever, whatever the relationship, the friend. And I think in the world of estate planning, from the perspective of planning for your life, you've spent your entire life saving, or you've spent your entire life working to take care of your kids. And there is such a giant personal aspect, which is what I love about estate planning. That's what drove me to this field instead of somewhere else. But you're exactly right. I think it's so important when you meet with an attorney that they give you that good feeling on the inside, that they feel like you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with them, that they are going to have your best interest at heart, not just what's legal, because any attorney could tell you what you should and shouldn't do, and we will tell you that too. But we're also there for you in another way of helping you, make this a smoother process so that you're not so overwhelmed, because it is a lot to think about. And a lot of times our clients, I ask them, what questions do you have? And I feel so awful. Their eyes are just so glazed over and they say, I don't even have any questions because I don't know where to start. And so those are the things that you should be able to be candid with your attorney about. And hopefully that's where your attorney does pick up that compassion and step in and say, okay, what can we do? Let's see. These are the 5 things we need to get done, and let's see how we can get them done. And I think that's the way that we approach things here at the Dean Law Firm. We just, not only do we want to give you legal advice, we want to help you. We really do. We want to make your life just a smidge easier. If we can make it just a smidge easier, we feel like we've accomplished something that day. And that's really our goal, is not just to give you legal advice, but we care. We really do. We really do. And Julia,
Absolutely.
Julia practiced in 30
Carla, I'm going to tell you something. This is so strange how my mind works. Is I look at Prince. Prince is not with us anymore. Very, very wealthy. He was an incredible entertainer. He didn't even have a will.
No.
And I think about that. First of all, we never know when we might pass on. And if you look at, I look at every day, somebody 36 years old, 42 years old, 50, passing away, that I'm sure they didn't think that was going to happen. But I think about Prince not having a will. And that is so important that, and even if you don't have a lot of money, it doesn't matter. A person should have a will and have a caring and wonderful law firm that specializes in this area to sit down with a person.
That's right. And you bring up a really good point. I think a lot of times people think, well, I don't have millions or billions like Prince does, so I don't need this plan. That's not true at all. Honestly, the probate process is cheaper and quicker and more to the point if you have a will. If you don't have a will, we're going through the probate process, which is the court proceedings. They're deciding who gets your stuff. They're deciding what percentage that it is, how they get it. It takes them longer because anytime you include any kind of government agency things, we move at other people's paces. We can't just speed up the process anymore. And it's expensive to go through there with no will. Like I said, it is so much more affordable to set up the will, have it the way you want, the way you want your kids to get it, or your nieces and nephews to get your stuff. You get to decide all of that. Or if you don't care, you just want them to have it, you can say that too. You really get, without talking to an attorney, you really haven't given yourself every avenue available. And if you're just doing what the probate court allows you to do, sometimes that's not what you wanted. That's not what the person, or what your kids would want, or what's best for them, or anything like that. So talking to an attorney is always the first step. And I promise you, they're not as scary as because I don't like to go to the doctor for the same reason I think people don't want to come to see their attorney. It's scary. It's overwhelming. We attorneys love to remind everybody how smart we are, and we are smart, but we can talk, we can talk to you and make you understand. And that's what's important, is that the client understand that they don't have to be a creek with no paddle, I guess. So,
yes.
There are ways to take care of yourself and to take care of your children and to take care of the things that you've, like I said, spent your whole life accumulating or working for. So
I remember one of the first things Julia said, and it really showed her heart, is she said, you know what? We want to keep people from having to go into probate, because probate, like you said, becomes very expensive. So here it's like you're an attorney trying to tell you, we want to save you from that big expense.
That's right. And I tell people, I had a client come in today, needs probate, doesn't have a will, was a little sticker shocked at how expensive that was going to be. Now, there's nothing we can do about it from her perspective. It was a father who had passed away. Now, we can't do anything. But I said, this can remind you sometimes when you're going through these probate proceedings for your family, like your loved ones, your mother passed away, it can remind you, hey, you need to revisit your estate plan. Don't leave your loved ones in the same mess that maybe your parents left you. And it just, life gets the best of us, I think, sometimes, and these things aren't always on the forefront of our mind. So if I can put it at the forefront of your mind today, that would be wonderful. Just go talk to an attorney, see what they can do. Those consults are usually very inexpensive or free, or you get credit for them later. So don't let the fact that maybe you don't have $1 billion stop you or make you think you don't need to protect yourself, because that's just not the case.
You know, I think people look at, those words, estate planning. So they think, oh, I've got to have millions of dollars. Right. And that just isn't true.
That's true. I mean, I'm a young attorney. I have student loans, right? I still have a will, though. I mean, because I want what I do have, even if it's a $2.50 when I pass away, even if I have $2.50, I don't want that going somewhere I don't want it to go. I want it to go to my brother because he's the one I love and he's the one I want to take care of. So, I think that you're right. That word estate carries this kind of connotation that it's got to be this large thing. That's just not true. You just want to protect yourself and protect the people that you love. And that's what's most important.
Wait a minute, Colin, you mean to tell me that law school doesn't accept coupons?
No, I tried. I really, really tried. I promise you. I would have given them anything they'd have taken it that way. Oh, you had coupons. Exactly. I'll write an IOU. I'll give you a hug next week. I don't know. But no, they didn't take my coupons.
Let's talk about trust. What are the benefits of having a trust?
The major benefit is the probate avoidance. That is, here in Texas, that is the major selling point. Now, hand up, trusts are more expensive than a will, but it's because you're saving on the back half when you're not going through probate. So we've talked a little bit about the probate situation, and that's a court proceeding, a court's involved. If you do a trust instead of a will plan, you can avoid all of that. You can also take care of yourself if you ever become incapacitated. So my mother has a trust. When if she ever is incapacitated, meaning she can't take care of herself, maybe she has Alzheimer's, dementia, those sort of end of life kind of diseases that hit us. I'm the trustee of my mother's trust. I can step in and take care of her with her own stuff. What that means for my mother is she's not going to the probate court here during her life and getting a guardianship proceeding over her. So we see a lot of the guardianship proceedings in the news. It's where, an older person can no longer take care of themselves. Somebody steps in. That's where a lot of abuse happens, as you can imagine, because the court has appointed somebody that maybe my client doesn't know to take care of them. So in this instance, the trust that my mom created can already have that all set up for her. She's not going to court. Those court proceedings can be $10,000 to $15,000. I mean, they're expensive. Yes. So this trust has completely avoided that for her. So it's protecting her during her life. But then my brother and I get everything 50-50, 50% to my brother, 50% to me. We get those inside of trust. What's beautiful about that is now that my mom has created this pot that's just for me and just for my brother, our shares can be protected from our creditors if anybody ever sues us or if we owe anybody money. Also, our future ex-spouses if we have any. I'm not married, but my brother's married, and we don't know. Heaven forbid something happened to him with him and his wife. She would have no stake or any claim to what he has received from my mom, as if it's done correctly. And I think that's a way that we don't think about. Divorce, it happens all the time. Unfortunately, nobody likes to think about it. That divorce rate is high. So we want to protect our kids when we can, or our nieces or our nephews or each other, spouses from remarrying and stuff like that after death. Those are all things that can be accomplished inside of a trust that, it's also amendable during your life, which I think is really important. People think, oh, I can't write a trust. What if I change my mind? What if my kid makes me mad and I don't want, or what if my kid gets hurt or doesn't need the money? Everything's so changeable during your life. So I think we get all these ideas of trust that aren't really real. They sound scarier than they really are. And really they can protect people in a lot of different ways.
We just got a text in from a listener. They're calling from the Dickinson area.
Oh.
They want to know, what if I pass away and I have young children? Does a estate planning agreement, she's calling it an agreement, say where my kids should go?
That's a great question. Yes, absolutely. It can. Your estate plan, meaning your will or your trust, or even if you don't have a will or trust and there's a separate document called a declaration of guardian for children. And those are really important documents. I mean, that's who gets your children if something is to happen to you. Now, in the state of Texas, it immediately defaults to the other parent, the other biological parent of the child, assuming they haven't given up any rights or anything like that. So from that perspective, you're a little protected, but so often husband and wives are in car accidents together, unfortunately. Yes. So those are the kinds of things you want to talk to your attorney about. What happens after both of you have passed away and your kid's only 6 years old? Is it like my brother? I get my brother's kids, and my cousin too as well. I end up with everybody's kids in our family because I happen to be the one without kids. So, you want to think about your family dynamics, and a good estate planning attorney is going to ask you, well, does it make sense for your parent to do it? Because your parent's going to age quicker than you are because they're older than you. Maybe, but if the kids are young enough, those are the kinds of questions that your attorney should be asking. What are those kids? What do they need? Who are they? What kind of people do you want them to be? Who would you want to be raising them? And you need to have those conversations with the people you choose. So for the texter, let's say you are good with your sister raising your children. You want to talk to your sister about how you want to raise those kids and what you would expect and what that to look like. So absolutely, that is exactly where those wishes need to be, so that they are in writing, is inside of your estate plan somewhere, depending on your set of
circumstances. If you're sitting around at the dinner table and all of a sudden the subject comes up and you say, hey, you know what? I want, if God forbid something happens to us, we want you to have the kids. Mm-hmm. Does that hold up, or does it need to be in a document?
It's got to be in writing. I mean, hopefully a judge would honor those types of things, but as you can imagine, they don't have to, right? And unfortunately people can lie, right? People can say, well, she always told me I'd get her kids. Well, most of the time when they want your kids, it's because they want whatever purse strings might come along with the kid. And so that's where we really worry about. Those kids can't always advocate for themselves. A 7-year-old doesn't know what he's supposed to be fed for dinner, right? He has no idea. So he's really relying on who you've put in charge. And if you've just communicated that to them verbally, that doesn't stand up. It's got to be in writing. It's got to be something that a judge can see. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so really wanted their kids to go to sister. Great. The judge can touch that. They can see it. They understand. And so you never want to put yourself in a situation where you've communicated all of these things, but not written them down either, because you're still unprotected at that point. And as you can imagine, if an 8-year-old has just lost their mother, they're going to be a little bit of an emotional wreck as well. Yes. The last thing we want to do is pull that 8-year-old into a courtroom where they're scared and they're overwhelmed, and put them with somebody that maybe they aren't comfortable with. Maybe they don't know mom's sister that well, and it would have made sense for them to go to dad's sister or something like that. Those are conversations that at that point, then it's too late to have, because we're in front of a judge and a judge is going to decide. And a judge doesn't know your family. They'll try and they'll do their best to be compassionate, but they don't know the ins and outs of your day-to-day life.
I saw a commercial the other night and I thought about your firm. It was talking about a do-it-yourself wills. Yeah. And one of the things I've learned about your firm, there are so many things you have to learn about. I kid Julia. I said, God, you've got this list in your head that people would probably never even think about. It's so important that when someone sits down with you, I can't even imagine someone trying to do this themselves, because there's so many ins and outs that you have to know about, things that maybe you would never think about, that that's available to them.
Right. And that's right. And honestly, so often when people do those doityourself.com kind of wills, they create more problems than they've cured. So because they aren't because those are just regular wills, those aren't tailored to the state that you're in. Well, Texas has different laws than Louisiana, than Illinois, than what, so on. We know the Texas laws. We know what will get a court to approve your will, to look at it and say, yep, as quick as possible. They don't. And they're just writing general wills for all 50 states. Well, all 50 states do not require the same thing. Here in Texas, you got to have 2 witnesses and a notary, and you have to have this special language at the back that says it's self-proving. We know those things, and we don't expect you to know those. You aren't the person that, we don't expect you to know them. So hand it over to your estate planning attorney and just, talk to them and explain what you want done. Of course, communicate. But trying to do it yourself will probably cause you more headache and more money in the long run fixing it. So
how do you keep up with the taxes? I mean, that's your specialty. How do you keep with the changing world of taxes?
You pay a lot of attention to politics. Sometimes, you're so overwhelmed by it. But, my family always calls me, did you see this tax change? Or did you see, President Biden said this, or President Kamala, potential President Kamala said this. I'm always watching. And that's what your attorney should be doing, because if you're affected by these changes, you should expect a letter or something from your attorney saying, hey, we've changed the tax laws. Let's get you back in here and see if we can save you some money. And right now we've got a little bit of an estate tax issue coming up here in the 2026. So like I tell every one of my clients, we are watching those numbers. You don't need to, nor do you probably want to be honest. You don't want to be it wasn't your dream since the 5th grade to be a tax attorney. Give it to the person who wants to do it, and we're here, and other attorneys I know are happy to do those kinds of things for you, and pay attention to those numbers so that you just don't have to, it's not a fun thing to pay attention to.
And, if you're a business owner, especially if you have a partnership, I mean, gosh, what if your partner passes away? I mean, do you want to be in business with their wife? Or, I mean, there's just so many things that you offer that, a regular person off the street wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, that's huge. One of the big things we see without wills, is everybody that in the family inherits a piece of property. The last thing that you want to do is own property with your stepmom that you don't know that well. In those blended families, that's what we see so often. A third of the property is owned by this kid, a third's owned by this grandkid, and a third's owned by the surviving spouse. Nobody wants to be in those situations, because a lot of times, there's not money to buy each other out. So you own your third. Well, you're responsible then for your third of the property taxes and the repairs. But if you don't have the money, you're putting that on the other people. Well, they should know who they're kind of getting into business with. So you're exactly, and same thing from the perspective of companies or partnerships or LLCs or any of that stuff. You don't usually want to be in a partnership with, like you said, your partner's now surviving spouse. That's just not a great time. And if, there are just things you can talk about, ways to make sure that you can buy each other out, insurance policies, so that, if you're in that situation, you just buy the surviving spouse out and say, you know what, we don't want to be in business together, or let's split. There's so many things that we can plan. But after you've passed away, obviously it's too late to plan for those sorts of things. And usually you've left a giant mess that could have been avoided. So that's kind of
Carla, this is the Ask the Experts 13th year. And one of the things I've learned is when it's a great interview, the show goes by so fast. And this show has gone by so fast.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
How they can reach your office.
Yes, the number is down at the bottom. Also, the website is juliadeanlaw.com. Phone number 281-277-3326 right there at the bottom. I'm Calla again. We've got Jonathan and Julia, and we've got a great team here that we get told all the time we're the only attorney in town that answers the phone. So as silly as that sounds, we will answer your phone call. So just give us a call, give us a shout, or shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, customer service is very important to Julia. We can't thank you enough. I love when you sit in. You do such a great job, and we'll be replaying this show in 2 weeks. Calla, thank you so much.
Everybody have a good day.
We'll see you soon. That's the Julia Dean Law Firm. We're going to take a real short break, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.